The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel as written to us by Matthew. Jesus came from Galilee to John at the Jordan River to be baptized by him. John tried to prevent him, saying, "I need to be baptized by you, and yet you are coming to me?" Jesus said in reply, "Allow it for now, for thus it is fitting." Then he allowed him. And after Jesus was baptized, he came up from the water, and behold, the heavens were opened for him. And he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and coming upon him. And a voice came from the heavens, saying, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased." This is good news from the Lord. In one form or another, most of the world religions speak of two births. The first birth is your physical birth, where you get your body. You come into this world and you know that you exist. But the message seems to be that you don't know what that existence means or what it's for unless you experience a second birth. Our general word for that is initiation. Now, in that sense, a lot of people are not initiated. They don't know what their life is for. They think it's just to have children or to make money or to have a better house or any of the usual things. Now we have Jesus at the age of 13, when usually a Jewish boy was initiated in the Jewish community. It's still called the bar mitzvah. He comes to the temple hoping that the elders will initiate him and tell him what his life is really about. You remember the story. He comes and he turns the tables, or he's disappointed, maybe you might say, that the elders have nothing to tell him. They aren't elders. They aren't wise men. So here, some years later, around 30, he has to go out and initiate himself. That's the meaning of going into the wilderness for these many days. We'd put it, to find out who he is. What does this mean? It's neat to know that even Jesus had to go on a journey, had to make discoveries. It wasn't given all in one package right at the beginning. So he's been in the desert for 40 days, and then the message comes quite simple form. "You're my beloved Son, and I am pleased with you." Now, I guess that is exciting, but actually, for most of us it isn't, because we have to hear the same thing. And until you hear the same thing, "You are my beloved daughter. You are my beloved son. I'm pleased with you," you're not initiated. Now, that can happen in many ways. Usually it's in a period of deep love or deep suffering, where suddenly the heart and the mind are led to a much deeper level. And you say, "What is this all about? Why do I exist?" And it is revealed to you. Now, it's this story that creates the image of the Holy Spirit as a dove. Now, the Holy Spirit is not really a dove or a bird, but for invisible things, we need visible symbols. And so this one has remained to this day. The descending of the dove is the descent of the Holy Spirit. So I guess you're probably all thinking, well, what do I have to do to get initiated? We did the same thing in the Catholic Church that the Jewish people did. They pushed the first birth ritual back to 8 days after birth, or approximately. They called it circumcision. We call it baptism, imitating this event here. But the trouble is, of course, we're not conscious when we're 8 days old or a little child. And that's the drawback of our form of initiation. It was done unto us, but we did not seek it, understand it, desire it, need it, let it change us. And so in many ways, we have to do the same thing as Jesus did. Our native people, some of the tribes, called it to go on a vision quest. Many young men do this. They go alone in nature for an extended time. And I want to point out, it's almost always done in nature. It's not done in a church building, even though we're going to send our RCIA people in a few minutes. It very often happens when you're alone, when you're in the natural world, and when you know there's a world much bigger than you are. You have to be struck by awe. You have to be struck by wonder. You have to be struck by your own littleness. Now, for years, we gave these initiation rites as best humans can do it up at Ghost Ranch. I started in 1996. We started with 150 men because it was only for men. And you're all saying, well, that's not fair. Well, here's the reason. Women were presumed not to need it because the labor pains of childbirth, the seeming, I don't know if it is, humiliation of menstruation already made a woman ask deeper questions. What am I for? What does life mean? But the man was able to fly to his important job, or how he made money, or his car, all kind of external things. So cultures had to assure that the male went deep, because by nature the male does not go deep. I probably don't need to tell that to most women, right? He tends to live on the surface of life. And if he isn't forced to initiate himself or be initiated, he really thinks life is all about sports and his job and making money. And this makes him very lonely and even very angry at the end of life. And I've had more than one say, what does it all mean? What did it all mean? Just so you don't think you women are off the hook, in our present capitalistic, materialistic culture, I'm afraid young women need initiation just as much as young men. They can be just as superficial, just as unseeking. They can just seek sports, I guess, or something that's entirely on the outside of the self, not on the inside. So we all have our journey to make. But we have in the entire life of Jesus a modeling of this important step. That there's the first birth. We know you all went through that. Your second birth maybe has happened, maybe not. But if it hasn't, you need to seek it. It's not going to happen if you don't want it. You need to pray. When the times of great love and great suffering come, be open, be quiet, be alone. And usually the Spirit will descend.